which is sub v dub. Which is superior and why? I mean, do you want to go ahead and start? I think you go and then I rebuttal.
Yeah, sure, why not? Me personally, MH9, I think in the early 2000s, dub was better than sub. That's because I grew up with dub, which so there's a slight bias there. But I think the quality of dub was on par with sub back then. And because the quality was on par, I could do other things while watching dub anime. So like, doing work, etc. But if I wasn't being ADHD and multitasking, I feel like when watching anime itself, it was more immersive to watch it without having to look at subtitles and miss crazy animation set pieces, etc. So I think for that reason, the early 2000s dub was better, even though they were on par technically. I just feel like from 2010 onwards, though, it began to decline because sub from 2010 onwards was like just a higher quality in general. It was more emotional tone in the delivery in the animes itself, and dub just became very stagnant and boring, and it got really bad. It wasn't even boring actually. At a certain point, it was just like there was no effort at all with the dub. It was like really terrible. So at that point, I was like, yeah, let me just transition back over into sub. But I think dub gets a lot of hate that it doesn't deserve, and I actually do like dub. So like just recently, I watched Soul Eater, which is an early 2000s anime, and I decided to go with a dub. And what to my like unsurprisingly, I found out the dub is just as good as the sub. So yeah, I take dub when I can, but there are some certain cases where like you know what, even if the dub and sub is equivalent, sometimes sub is just more authentic and like certain like emotional sequences in shows when it is really extreme or not, they're delivered better in sub. So yeah, my final answer would be in the early 2000s dub was better, but 2010 onwards sub is now better. What's your opinion then, Mitch?
I think. Oh, okay. I'm torn. I'm torn, and it's similar to what you said earlier about like you could if it's dub and they're speaking in like a say English dub, um, and obviously there's no subs to look at, then your focus can be elsewhere, and you can still watch the anime, in the background. Just doing basic things like cooking, doing homework, and obviously as kids we were cooking or whatever, but whenever I used to do homework, I used to just have anime on one screen or even two screens, and I used to just listen, and it used to be background noise almost, but I knew what was happening and the events happening because I can just glance up at the screen. And for sub, it was really difficult. I'll say a classic one, Death Note. I used to love Death Note. I rewatched it so often, but I always watched it in dub. And I think the reason for watching it in dub is just I was doing my homework and I couldn't have the attention to look up at a screen and read the entire sentence like the sub in like a split second and look back down and focus. So I was a busy kid sometimes, just studying, up until 11, 12, whatever, and thinking, damn, the anime episode was good. Like, I caught up and I sort of have enough knowledge of the episode or the anime, even though I'm not watching it, I'm sort of listening to it like an audio book rather. But that's what dub provided. And I think with sub, I'd have to lock in almost. You have to watch it and then look down the entire sentence. You're gonna have to listen to it in like a split second. You're gonna have to read all of it in a split second, and then you're gonna have to lock back into the animation because animation was so on point. And I think with sub, there's more authenticity. I think is what you mentioned. There's like
Mm.
authenticity to watching it, and I think a lot of people felt. I mean, there was a really dumb take, and you said this before. People thought sub was superior, and I think most people do now. They feel like there's a hierarchy. If you watch things in sub, you're great. If you watch it in dub, you're trash and you're scum. And they look, people legitimately look down on me. I've had times where I said, "Oh yeah, Dragon Ball Z Kai English." Dragon Ball in English was amazing because no offense, but I didn't like the high pitched Goku voice in Japanese. So I was like, hell no, I'm watching this in dub. Same with Death Note. It was actually decent in sub, but the dub sometimes, like Yagami's laugh and evil cackle in English, that the dub was far greater than the Japanese dub with the English sub. I'm sorry, it just was. And it depends and it varies based on what you're doing. So as a kid, definitely dub because I was more busy doing things like homework then, and I really had the time to like lock in and focus. Right
Mm.
now, it's strange because there are times when I'm really busy, but I can still try to keep up with sub. But overall, and I think a lot of people are gonna hate this opinion, but I prefer dub. Like Classroom of the Elite in 2018, season one came out. and that was like sub. And I sort of locked in, didn't do my homework, or did my homework first and just put it aside. And
Mm,
when it came to Classroom of the Elite, I watched it in sub, and it was really good. I've been watching dub now for like the second season and the third season, and I'm like, you know what, this is pretty good. Like their voices actually match their face and their body how I'd imagine it.
mm,
So I do
yeah,
prefer
yeah.
dub now, but that's only because I have a lot of stuff to do. Plus, we're at the old age where we need to work, so we
Exactly,
don't have time.
exactly.
We don't have time to lock in.
So
I'm sorry.
yeah, exactly. Overall, I'd say, do you know what? Yeah, if dub done right, it is actually low-key superior to sub, but sub
Mm.
overall is really great. So I can't really put it one way, but I'd say overall, in my overall opinion, I genuinely agree with you. Might not actually prefer dub, but
Yeah,
yeah,
let's
sub
go.
is great. Sub is great too.